Welcome back to The Outright Effect, a podcast in which unique perspectives challenge us to be better versions of ourselves. I'm Tempsy,
And I'm Shelly.
and today we are going to provide some really unique perspectives on the coronavirus. We are definitely practicing some social distancing, so we are recording this separately. It's kind of cool.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness for technology.
Thank goodness. And it really did give us an opportunity to learn how to do this. We've never done this before. So this means that maybe in the future, we can have some guests on our show that are not living in Hawaii. So that'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, it definitely opens us up to a whole bunch of different options. So we're excited about that. And this is a good opportunity that sort of like forced us to learn how to do this sooner rather than later, because if it was left up to us, I'm sure we'd just take our sweet time with that. So yeah.
Definitely. So let's get into it, Shelley. What do we want to talk about in terms of the coronavirus? We've heard so much news about COVID-19 and everything that's going on around the world. Like, what are we going to talk about today?
So, I think a lot of us out there have heard so much about what already is going on in the world and what we should be doing precautions and stuff like that. So we don't want to, bombard you with the same information, but we do just want to share some of our perspectives on things that, we're trying to practice within our life, right? Like right now and what we're doing and kind of our interpretation of things, I guess. We also want to preface that we're not medical professionals, we're not doctors or nurses or anything like that. So this is purely based on our thoughts and sort of like reflecting on the information that we're being given, which is, similar to the information that all of you guys out there are also being exposed to, right? And hopefully it's credible information from proper sources and not just random people posting whatever they want to online.
Yeah.
So, I think when this whole thing started and we saw the numbers increase with how many people are getting infected and what kind of symptoms they're having. And, I think a lot of people were getting pretty scared, I think for a good reason. This is something that is relatively new, right? That's why it's called nouveau COVID-19 or coronavirus or whatever. It's a new strain of it. But I think something that we have to keep in mind is that we're not being told to social distance and stay at home because, oh my God, it's so contagious. And once you open your front door, you're going to catch it. Yes, it is very contagious, but really the social distancing part comes into play to help us help others, right? So by us staying at home, for those of us who are healthy, well, and maybe we don't have anything that, like a weak immune system or whatever that may be, like those kinds of challenges with our health, like we could very easily transmit that to other people being healthy and not even know that we've been around it or exposed to it in any way, shape, or form because we never showed symptoms. So really us staying at home is so that we don't like get everybody sick. We're not like sharing this thing and people are like making a mad rush to the hospital, which I think right now Italy is having issues with that, where they're basically like, if you're over 65 or 60 or something like that, like we can't even help you. Sorry, we're going to help the young people. Like, people are having to make these tough decisions because the hospitals are overloaded. They don't have enough medical supplies, beds for sick patients, rooms for them to stay in. And that's kind of, I think a main reason why we're being asked to social distance and to stay at home. So this thing doesn't spread even faster than it already is. So, I get it. There is some concern about how contagious it is, how dangerous it could be for some people, but I think, there's a second part to that. It's not just like, oh my gosh, this thing is so big and scary. It is, but that's not the only reason why you're being asked to stay at home.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an important point because a lot of people are getting a little bit of anxiety around just absolutely not getting COVID-19. And I think that what the government is focusing on is minimizing the overwhelming amount of people that could be getting into the hospital because they've gotten it all at the same time. And so flattening the curve just means we're going to spread it out over time and we're going to minimize how many people are in the hospital at any given time. We're all going to get exposed to it at some point in time. It doesn't mean we're all going to get it, but we are all going to get exposed to it. And so social distancing is not to prevent every single person from getting it. It's just to lighten the load on our healthcare workers and our hospital facilities.
So I think something that a lot of us are seeing all over the place is, people going to the stores and like buying everything off the shelves and that kind of stuff. But I think something that comes to mind for me anyway is like for me personally, there are some things that I felt like, oh my gosh, I actually really need this. But someone has like 1,000 of them at home because they felt the need, or, it was kind of like a panic buy situation. But maybe it's not me, maybe I can deal with not having something for a while or whatever, I could figure it out in some way, shape, or form. But for people who have like elderly family members who are maybe 80, 90 years old, like some of those people, they can't not live without that thing that now they can't even get, and I think that I mean presents a problem basically, right? Because for some people who for whatever reason feel the need that they need all of it as much as they can get, buying it to the limits that the store will allow. Somebody else out there is like in possibly critical need for the same thing. Um, and I think that's something that we're seeing everywhere. And hopefully, there is some way to manage that or whatever. Like, let's say, for example, like right now, hospitals are calling out for donations on masks and stuff from maybe people who are like mask buying things online or going to the stores and buying everything that they need. But these are like medical professionals who are actually treating people who are sick. They're literally face to face with somebody all throughout the entire day that they're working, without the proper ways to protect themselves from getting sick too. And what happens when these, like, just very truthfully, not to be like negative, but what happens when these healthcare people fall ill and then can no longer care for people who need help, right? Like, wouldn't you want to give those supplies to them so that they can continue to care for the people who need it? That's just my thought on that. But I have been seeing things here locally, like um, there's a high school that has a 3D printer that's printing shields, like 4,000 shields, I think, for an organization. There's another company, I think they normally produce like food containers and that kind of stuff. So they just change the way that their machine shapes the plastic so that they can, make some other things, medical supplies and things like that, like shields for hospitals. So I think that kind of stuff is really cool. And I think that's where it's really nice to see like the community and people like coming forward and coming together to like give back in these different kinds of ways, because of the craziness that the panic buyers cause, and not having enough stuff. But so I think it's good that meanwhile stores may be empty, but people are finding ways to accommodate the situation. That doesn't mean that it will completely remedy everything that's going on, I think, but I think it's good to see that people out there are willing to help.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think we want to encourage everyone. You may have been hearing all of this stuff on the news, and we told you we were going to give you a different perspective, but we just want to, we both kind of agree on this is like, if you can try not to over purchase items that you don't need. Shelly and I are kind of on the same page on this. Um, don't try to sell it to other people and gouge other people for it. It's a time to come together and work together. And I like some of the things that you had mentioned in terms of the community coming together. I also saw that food trucks are delivering meals to some of the elderly nursing homes. And I also saw a lot of distilleries who are
Hmm.
um, they're using their facilities to create sanitizer. So
Yeah.
it's really great to see the community coming together, especially here in Hawaii.
Hmm. So, as all of you out there listening to this episode probably noticed, Tempsy and I are recording remotely. I'm at home, she's at home. We're not in the same place, and so we wanted to also talk about, work from home options for employees because that's the situation that both of us are in right now, and will likely be through the end of April. Unless things improve. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. It's not even April yet, it's the end of March. And so, Tempsy, why don't you go ahead and kind of talk about your experience so far working from home?
So, as you guys know, I have a child at home, and he had just started uh, going to preschool. About he went to preschool
Couple
for
weeks.
basically 2 weeks. So he had a lot of fun in preschool, but now, we're on lockdown. So both my husband and I are working from home with a 2.5-year-old here. And we contemplated having our in laws come over, but the more people that you have at your house that live in different places and are going to different grocery stores, the higher number of people they're getting exposed to. So it kind of defeated the purpose of, quarantining ourselves. So we decided, you know what, we're just going to do what we can to keep him entertained and see if we can engage him in different ways that will allow us to continue working. So essentially, what I'm doing is I wake up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and I start working as soon as I get up. I will definitely change my clothes so that I'm not working all day in sleep clothes. I will brush my teeth. I will, do something with my hair because it's a hot mess in the morning, and just make sure that I have like a proper setup for the day so I don't feel like I'm just lounging at home all the time. I think it kind of puts me in a different mindset and it's really good for me. And then I will get started with my work immediately as soon as I possibly can and get as much done before 8 o'clock as possible, or I guess before 7:30 because that's when my kid kind of wakes up. He wakes up anywhere between 5:30 and 7:30 in the morning, and then I try to give him things to do that things he can do on his own after I feed him. And so we've tried a lot of different things. Some of the things that have worked is we bought this shark that kind of has a handle on it. When you squeeze it, it opens his mouth so he can kind of grab things, but it's not too aggressive to where it's going to hurt him. And so he'll pick up other things with that. And we created games with it. We hid Easter eggs around the house so he could go find them. And we're just taking it 15 minutes at a time, to be super honest. It's not the best situation, but it is keeping him engaged. And we have bought a few extra things from Amazon to try to, give him the opportunity to play by himself. And he does you know, every few hours he'll play by himself for 30 minutes or so, and it's definitely a blessing. But he's a 2.5 year old. He needs a lot of engagement, and so we also try to take him outside by the pool area or to this empty church park where nobody is, and we let him ride his bike to get some energy out. And we're just trying different things throughout the day so that we can really get a good amount of work done. We feel really lucky that we have the opportunity to continue working. And so we want to make sure we're giving all we can to that, but also make sure that, he's taken care of as well.
Kind of elaborating on that a little bit, I would imagine that for a 2.5-year-old or up until like a certain age, probably still through elementary school, there still is a level of supervision that a parent would need to, watch and monitor their child versus if you had like a 15-year-old or something like that. So, I think those scenarios are definitely different because if you had like a teenager, they could get lunch on their own, like open the fridge, microwave something on their own, and that kind of stuff. So, is there anything that you'd like to elaborate more on in regards to stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for us, definitely he can't read on his own. So those folks who get those links for schooling at home, we have to walk him through that, and we have to engage with him in order to get him to do some of the things because preschool does have curriculum. And so his preschool did send some stuff over, but that stuff has to be done with him. And so those are things that we do with him periodically throughout the day. And we do have to make his lunches. He eats 2 different breakfasts. He has 2 different snacks throughout the day. So essentially, we're preparing several different things throughout the day, taking us away from our work. So that's why I wake up that early in the morning. Well, I always woke up at 5:30, but that's why I start work as soon as possible because then it kind of makes up for the amount of time I'm going away from work to care for him and engage him and ensure that he's getting what he needs out of the day from his parents. I do feel a little bit bad for him because he is craving me attention now that we're here all the time. And so when we're done with work, 5:30, we completely shut it down and really focus on him to ensure that he knows his parents, are engaged with him and care about him. But there is a big difference with kids who, have a homeschooling schedule that they can engage with themselves as opposed to those that are quite a bit younger, even kids that are older than Grayson that, still don't know how to read yet and are still trying to learn. It's hard to keep those kids engaged. You have to be right there with them to go through the curriculum.
Right. You can't just like give them a book and be like, here you go. All right. And like figure, oh, they take care of themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I feel like there's this kind of like gray area where then, it transitions over, right? Like just depending on grade level and that kind of stuff. Plus, too, I think there also is up to like a certain age where I think because now we're kind of being quote unquote like forced to work from home, like kids are not used to seeing their parents at home all day. They're also not used to themselves being at home all day. So now they think it's Saturday every day, right? They're like, Mom's home, I'm home. Like, now we can play or whatever. I'm going to go over there and bother her. She's just on her computer. I don't even know when I see her on her computer at home, right? Like that kind of thing. So I think
Yeah.
that's interesting. Yeah. On the flip side, it's funny because I was posting something on Facebook the other day on my personal account about Spotify playlists that I suggested people listen to in case they need some sort of background noise or whatever. Because I mean, my work from home situation is very different. So Chris works in a hospital. He doesn't get a break right now, obviously, right? Hospitals are still operating. He's lucky enough where he doesn't have patient interaction. So, I mean, he still needs to be careful at work, but maybe not to the degree where he is face to face with somebody who might be sick. And I think because his workflow comes from, operations, and a lot of the elected operations that are not emergency or like needed right now are being canceled or postponed to some later time after all of this settles down. His like the work situation for him is changing a little bit. He's actually home 2 days this week. They changed their schedule. He took 2 vacation days because he like maxes out on vacation and wasted actually. I probably shouldn't say that. I don't know who listens to this, but but that's the truth. So he's actually home today. He was home yesterday and today, but all of last week I worked at home by myself. And from day one, Monday, the first day I was work from home, I was like, I'm in jail or something. Like this is what someone in jail feels like, because it basically for me was like being in isolation. So I am literally at home by myself. I had to think, hey, Shelly, okay, well, usually wake up at 5:45, you get ready real quick, you go to work and you start working. So usually I arrive at the office around like 7 o'clock or something like that. But now I don't have to drive. So I'm like, all right, I'll wake up a little bit later. But also, you know, reminding myself like you're just really walking downstairs and turning your laptop on. Like you have to separate yourself a little bit before all like 24 hours of the day you're working, which I don't think I could possibly do. But no, I don't think anybody should be doing that to begin with, right? Like that's just gonna make you a less effective employee. You're gonna be burnt out and tired, and you're gonna start hating the situation, right? Like nobody wants any of those things. So for myself, I did have to learn, from day one, I think, I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm a very like enlightened person and I was like thinking ahead of about this or anything like that. But from day one, I thought like, I need to figure out when is my lunch break. I should probably open a window or something like that. Like let some outside light in. Take some breaks during the day because now I don't have to like take a little walk to the water cooler to get more water. Like it's like 2 seconds to go to the fridge to get water. The bathroom's super close, right? So it's not like I have to like walk down a hallway or anything like that. And what I noticed is like anytime I would stand up, because I was sitting down for so many hours in a day. I mean, I wasn't sitting down a full 8 hours, but even just sitting down for an hour, like I didn't print stuff to a printer where I had to get up and like walk a few steps to go. Actually, the printer's kind of far from me at work in the office, but I didn't have to do those kinds of activities. And also, my dining room chair was not built to be sitting down and doing work from for 8 hours in a day. So I would get up and be like, oh my God, my legs hurt so much. So I decided, I needed to get in more movement. I can't just be sitting down here like this. So I decided, like, this week, I should have decided to do this last week, but this week I decided, like, okay, on Monday, if I have to go to the bathroom, I'm going to walk to the farthest bathroom at home. I'm going to walk upstairs and go to the bathroom in the master bathroom because that's the farthest away from where I'm sitting with my computer. So that's something that I have been doing this week. And that's kind of been like helping me get a little bit more movement. Also kind of like walking around a little bit before I like get to the fridge to get any water, just to change it up, stuff like that. And also I noticed that, and the reason why I gave some playlist recommendations on Spotify is because it was just like weird hearing cars pass by and that's it, and like being in complete silence. So I did feel like I needed some kind of background noise because and things that don't have talking. So if I put on some music, it's mostly instrumental. If it has like lyrics in it, then you start to pay attention to it a little bit more, try to sing along. And I'm like, no, I just need like piano or something like that. But it sort of takes the place of that, background office chatter, like your coworkers talking on the side or anything like that. So those are some things that I have been doing for myself since this work from home situation started. I mean, I've had a coworker for yesterday and today, but he's technically on vacation, so he's not doing any work. He's just kind of cruising around. But yeah, so that's something that I've been doing to manage myself being home alone. I realize, in talking to some friends who are working from home and have kids, they're like, oh, I have to go like get my kid from climbing on the sofa or whatever, like picking up this thing they're not supposed to be. And I just don't have that to break up my day. Like it's me by myself. I'm not monitoring anybody else while I'm here. So I did have to very mindfully add those things into my regular day. And so, but also I used to have like a regular workout schedule where I'd go to like a class or the gym or work out with my trainer. And right now I can't go to my trainer either. So tomorrow, which is Friday, 27th, she and I actually have a virtual training session. So we're going to Zoom meeting training and we'll see how that goes.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's super interesting. She and her husband just started doing virtual trainings, I think, this earlier this week because they've had to vacate their gym too. And I'll be honest, since, work from home started and all this like COVID-19, like you're trying to not go into super crowded areas or areas where you're touching stuff everybody else is touching, like a gym. I haven't really been, exercising as much as I should or as hard as I should. So I did go outside for like a couple of walks and stuff like that. And what I thought was really weird is I think because I'm pent up in the house for most of the day, when I get outside and I'm walking, it's like I might as well just jog because that's how fast I'm walking. Like I feel like I need to get somewhere. I don't know, but I just have like this burst of energy that I need to get out of my system. So I start walking super fast. So those are things that I noticed that it's kind of funny because I normally don't have that problem. And naturally, I do walk fast. So when I'm walking to the printer, I'm walking fast. When I'm going to get water in the office, I'm like running there basically. But, it's translating over into other things that I've been doing at home, which is kind of funny. But,
That is
anywho's,
that is
yeah.
interesting. There was somebody I saw on Instagram had their child do ukulele lessons over Zoom. And so this is a way for, community members who provide those services. Zoom is a really good way to continue those things and still be able to kind of keep your business afloat if
Hmm.
possible.
If you can.
Yeah, exactly. So people are getting really innovative with how they're providing services to other folks. So that's really interesting to see. Another thing that I noticed is a lot of the things that you're recognizing in terms of working from home. Um, I had actually read about in a book called Remote Office Not Required. It's by the founders of 37 Signals, and this is a group that most of their team works remotely. And I read this book because we had one member on our team who was going to go remote because she was moving back to the mainland. And we wanted to be really prepared for it and prepare the team for it. And I feel like one of the things that you mentioned in terms of having background noise or having interactions at least with other people on your team or within your company, those things are kind of gone, right?
Hmm.
And so some of the things that we try to do is have other kinds of interactions. We use a platform called Teams, and it's like a chat platform, but you can do a lot of other things with it. You can do video calls, you can call each other. So keeping in touch with people and really having like these kinds of chats where you're on Zoom and you're face to face and you're able to interact with each other. It's not exactly the same, but at least you're, seeing nonverbals and you're like, you know, having a great conversation and still able to connect with people. And Zoom offers a free option, I guess, subscription where you can do a 40-minute call. You can sign up for a Zoom account and do 40-minute calls with one other person as much as you want. I don't know if they've increased that with everything going on. I know they've been offering a lot of free services to students so that they can, get their work done. But it's a really great way to stay connected with people.
Hmm. So another thing that I've noticed recently too, especially because a lot of us have to stay at home, and because some of my friends own small businesses, they own like retail stores and stuff like that, like little boutique stores. And that here in Hawaii is considered like, a business that does not necessarily need to stay open, like have their doors open during this time, versus, a hospital, for example, obviously, right? So once this whole thing started, before, we were all strongly advised. I think there's fines now if you are just kind of gallivanting. But um, so, before when this whole thing started and people started to learn more about coronavirus and COVID-19, less people were just on the streets, just like, being afraid or trying to take care of themselves better or those around them. And so my friends who own these retail stores, they noticed like a huge decrease in foot traffic through their stores because that's where a majority of their sales would come through. And so I thought that was pretty crazy. I mean, that's significant, like if you need like a physical location that most people go to get products that you sell or whatever, I can see how that, is super detrimental. And especially with this week, everyone pretty much, it's kind of like a state mandate at this point, right? I guess that's what I would call it. A lot of them took their inventory home with them so that they can still work on doing like online sales. And I did notice that a lot of small businesses are also waiving shipping fees during this time because that's the only way that they can really do business right now if they're not having people physically walk into their stores. So that's something that I thought was like super impactful. Um, you know, Maybe good and bad. This is an opportunity for them to like vamp up their online stores or whatever and figure out ways to do that a little bit more efficiently and recognize and be proud of the fact that they are also flexible, right? They in times of need like right now, they can figure out other ways to keep their business going, but also kind of like at a disadvantage because you don't have that physical location that people are used to walking into. And same thing too, even some of like the big retailers who close their doors for days and days now and still continuing, they are also having a lot of online sales, probably to drive people to their online sites to buy instead for the same reasons. So I think Tempsy and I and a lot of other people in Hawaii, and during this time, knowing that small businesses take a bigger hit, I mean, all businesses are taking a hit right now, but I think small businesses take an even bigger hit. Highly encouraging people to support local businesses whenever they can. And I mean, even buying gift cards for their stores and that kind of stuff right now to help them if you can. Like, if you're in a situation where you can work remote, all is not necessarily fine and well, but you're continuing to do your job as you were even before all of this started, still getting a paycheck. You can help these companies out if you're able to. And buy that gift card now to spend later. I mean, you're not losing out on anything like that. Maybe buy some Christmas presents now because they're on sale. I don't know, take advantage of those opportunities. I feel like I have been
That's a great
embarrassingly
idea.
so.
A really good idea.
I have stuff coming in the mail like every day this week, which is
Yeah. I mean, and we get it that there's people out there who, you can't really do that right now, or you're taking the more conservative approach in terms of saving your money and all that good stuff. But Christmas is still going to come. So, even if it's a modified budget, I think that's a great idea to take advantage of some of those sales and support local businesses, and staying afloat during this really tough, tough time. It's a tough time for everyone. So,
mhm.
I also heard that there are some gardens out here that are doing deliveries with some of their produce. And
Mhm.
so that's a way for them to stay afloat as well. And you had mentioned to me that another one is like allowing cars to drive up and they'll bring out your order. You can order it online. Is that what you said?
Yep. I think you can either text or call them ahead of time. It's Mari's Gardens, actually. If you've been following our Instagram account, a while back in December, Tempsy and I went to a succulent ornament like Christmas holiday class thing out there. I'm actually planning to go there this weekend because one thing that I will honestly say that has been lacking from my diet, only because people are like clearing out the grocery stores or whatever, like Costco's produce section was like totally empty when I wanted like vegetables. But so I'm planning to go pick up some produce from the farm. I mean, it's far. It's relatively far from where I live, and not super convenient, but I
But hey,
think
there's
that's
no more
also,
traffic.
yeah, there's no traffic right now, so that's great. It would probably take me half the time now than it normally would take me on a regular day. But I mean, they have a lot of great things. Like I want corn and asparagus and stuff like that. So, I'm gonna make a drive out there and pick some stuff up. Especially, I think right now, and in any emergency kit, I don't necessarily think there's like healthy and nutritious food in like people's stock for that. Which I am just like, I don't know, I'm having a hard time with that. But
Yeah, well, that's like the basis of my diet is corn and asparagus and all of the vegetables. So, I'm curious as because I go to Costco every weekend for vegetables because I can get them in bulk, and I'm very curious as to how that'll go. So we'll see.
yeah, you can check out Mari's Gardens too.
Yeah, I probably will.
So I think, something that a lot of businesses, regardless if you're big or small, something that people are dealing with right now are hours being cut, right? Because maybe even the workload is slowing down for whatever reason. I mean, I feel at this point, if you're not a nurse or doctor or, caring for somebody who might be staying in the hospital, like your hours very well could be being cut. And I think a lot of companies are accommodating for people to use vacation time to supplement those hours where maybe they have like one day less of work a week. They're asking to stay home a day or two instead. But there are people who, let's say, they had to use their vacation for other things, like maybe they have kids and take off during spring break or that kind of stuff. So they've run out or already accounted for these vacation hours that they needed to use at some later time during summer vacation or whatever when their kids are not at school. And so I think that really sucks because right now you might have to take leave without pay. Like maybe they'll allow you to keep your job, but they can't pay you for that day that you're not working. And I think that sucks. And honestly, but at the same time, too, reasonable for the employer because if they just keep spending their money, then they may not be able to keep you at all. So at least, there's the option for them to allow you to keep your job later on. And for myself, honestly, it's a weird time because the only reason why I'm bringing it up right now is because I think, people who listen to this podcast that I know personally may already know this, but I am also going through a job transition during this remote time where I'm going to be ending a job and starting a job during this whole needing to stay from home situations. So, I have to figure out how do I return this company laptop that I've had for, a few years now. And what and how do I pick up stuff from the new job that I'm going to be starting um, during this time too. So I think that's like, it's kind of weird, and I personally don't know a lot of people who've had to go through this. I think if you were working for maybe like a super high tech company and you're going to be remote regardless, this is something that would have happened to you. But I'm used to working in a physical office. Both companies have physical offices. I normally would be there, in person. So I don't get to say like bye to my old coworkers really, I don't have that last day, in the office, but also like starting the new job I won't be working in the same room as my manager until all this is over, like at least for a couple of weeks or however long. But so I think that's different, that's like that's new for me.
Well, like, what is
So
your new hire orientation going to be like if they give the
right.
what is your training going to be like if you're going to be getting training? Like, all of those things are up in the air, and so, I think you're the type of person who's going to handle it really well. Um, but it's still a weird thing.
I know. So, some of the questions I asked is, do I need to come by on my first day or before? Like, where should I report on that day? I know we don't know right now. You can tell me later. That's fine. And they had suggested to me like, hey, you might want to set up a space at home to work from just in case. And I'm like, I have that, but do I need a laptop of yours or can I use my own personal laptop? Like, will I still be able to get to stuff? So, obviously wanting to make sure like that's taken care of. I feel like I can figure out what to do with myself for at least a couple of weeks. But like what are things that I can't even sign into because a lot of days, I mean, a lot of companies nowadays, like we're so technology driven, you need to be on a certain network, have certain access set up and that kind of stuff. So I was thinking to myself, like, I don't even know if I really can look at anything. But we'll make do and I'm sure it'll be fine. It's just very weird.
the unknown is definitely,
Yeah.
it can
Hmm.
be weird. So, and that's what everybody's going through with all of this. But I think it's a very uh, unique perspective to be transitioning from one job to another during a pandemic crisis. So maybe you can report back on it as to if it
How
was a
that went.
positive experience or, anything like that.
Hmm.
Billy, I know in other conversations we were talking about healthcare professionals and how they need to be. They knew that when a pandemic is coming, if a pandemic did come, that they would be on board and ready to help serve. That's part of their job. But you mentioned something else that was interesting about other types of workers who probably had no idea that they would be a part of this. Do you want to speak on that a little?
Right, sure. So, this thought came up because way, way back in the day, like my very first job, this was probably mentioned on a previous episode too, but I worked at a grocery store like in high school. And right now, I mean, so yes, in Hawaii, we do have that, like, I don't know, tsunami thing or hurricane, whatever, where people are preparing emergency kits, just like anywhere else, if you have like tornadoes or whatever is going on over there. But so I mean, I've definitely worked in an environment where, there's just a mad rush for something. Not as crazy as right now though, but a lot of customers would come in, stuff would get sold out and that kind of stuff. But I feel like that's very different. So I remember back then I was working and there was like an earthquake that took the power out for most of a day here on Oahu. And the grocery store was still open, only that they weren't really selling any like frozen stuff, things that needed to be kept cool. But if you needed any canned goods or like stuff right off the shelf, like bread or whatever, they would let a certain amount of people in there at a time to go and shop. And the registers weren't really working very well, but people could figure it out, right? You could pay cash or something like that. But now in this situation, I was thinking like, oh my God, if I was still working at a grocery store, I didn't sign up to come face to face with people that possibly have the coronavirus or COVID-19 in the checkout line, me being stuck there, having to ring people's groceries up, and then someone sneezing or like whatever they're touching, like you're touching everything else, everybody else is touching. And like as someone who was working at like a grocery store, whatever, like back then I was just like a high school student that needed a paycheck, that wanted some extra money for the weekend or whatever. But now like people like that and I mean other people needed that job to pay their bills and stuff too, but they didn't sign up thinking like, hey, I was going into this environment. They're not in an environment where they need to wear a face mask at work usually. They're not in an environment where they need to wear gloves all the time, like maybe when you're cleaning something versus like, if you signed up to be like to drive an ambulance, you already know you're going to be face to face with sick people. You may have to revive somebody. You have to pay a lot of attention to things around you, what you're touching, and things that could be like contaminants or whatever, but not so much if you're working in like a grocery store. And those are considered right now essential jobs, so people can still get groceries that they need and like food and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, oh my God, I feel so bad for these people because had this happened like 10 plus years ago, that literally would have been me too. And I would be like, I did not sign up to be a doctor or anything, but here I am faced with, in a similar environment, maybe not necessarily taking care of sick people, but being exposed to a lot of similar things at, probably a higher frequency than a lot of other people. So, and even like, people who work at the pharmacies or drugstores and stuff like that. I mean, at the checkout or helping bag groceries or whatever, I was just like, that's just so crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but
And I'm
yeah.
sure I'm sure they're having an internal struggle between I'm really, appreciative that I have a job, but this job does expose me, to the coronavirus, and that's a concern. On the
Hmm.
very last day that we weren't in quarantine, I went to the grocery store and they didn't have any masks on. I mean, I'm sure they could have if they had any, but they had gloves on. So, at least they're protecting themselves that way and they're not, hopefully, not touching their faces. And, but I don't think there's 6 feet between the register and the people in line. I think that's more like maybe 3 feet, So, hopefully they're taking care of themselves. They had sanitizer, they had things around them, but um, yeah, it's tough. It's definitely a tough situation. And I just thought that was a really unique perspective that I've never worked in a grocery store. So I never would have thought of that. So very interesting to hear. We also wanted to talk about things that we can do while we're home. Shelly's in a situation where, she doesn't have a lot of disruption in her day. And so You probably get a lot done, huh?
I feel like I do get a lot done, but at the same time too, so I do kind of have like a issue with typing, like, stress in the arms from typing too much. So I do notice like it's flaring up right now because I just keep working. Yeah, whereas before I have like those breaks where, like I said, you're getting up to get water or talking to like a coworker or something like that. So yeah, I've been having to like stretch like my wrists and that kind of stuff. I also type very hard. So yeah.
But yeah, so even so though, you have, you work your 8 hours, you don't have to kind of extend that like I kind of mentioned before with my situation. And so, there's a long period of time before, maybe more after work, where you have a lot of time to yourself. So we wanted to give you insights on things that you might not have thought of that you could be doing in that time that can kind of get you through being stuck at home. You can still go outdoors, just keep your distance from people. I took a walk at 5 o'clock this morning just to go outside and get some fresh air. And I stopped at uh, a complex waterfall just to like sit there and kind of take in the air and breathe and just clear my mind. And that was really, really refreshing for me. So it only was a 15 to 20-minute walk. It wasn't a big deal, but it was really helpful just to get a different perspective for the day, different mindset for the day. It might not seem like much, but it does a lot.
Did you happen to see anybody when you were walking? I'm just curious.
Not that early. I saw a car drive by, but not
Yeah.
any people. But yeah, I think that if you have the opportunity to just take a walk, it's nice to get outside for sure.
Yeah. And so, something I just wanted to add on to that a little bit because I have gone walking like in the middle of the day or afternoon or something like that where there are people around. So this is kind of going back to the thing where it's like, don't be like super afraid or panic mode unless, you do have like some kind of immunocompromised, kind of situation. Because when you do see people outside, they will cross the street. Like they keep their distance. So, I mean, I think at this point we're all understanding the situation and knowing what we kind of need to do. So I have gone to parks and stuff, or if I'm walking like, someone else and I are walking towards each other on the sidewalk, one of us will like cut to the street and walk on the street instead so we can still keep that distance, or one of us will cross the street and walk on the other side. So I mean, that's what I've been seeing happen recently, and I think that's totally fine. Like, still going outside, right? Like, just don't, I don't know, just don't call like your 50 friends to come meet up with you at the park. Like, that's not something you should be doing, obviously. But
Yeah, for me too, another thing that I want to do once I have a little more time, my work day is stretched out a little bit, so I do have less time on my hands, I feel like. But if I do have time over the weekend, I want to work on some of, do some deeper work on some of my goals for the year and thinking about, my why and my purpose and what our goals as a family are for the future and kind of map that out a little bit. So if that's something that, you might have time for, those are some, I don't know, that sounds like a very calming and relaxing, thing for me to work on. So that's something that if you have time for it, hey, this is the time.
yeah, I personally have definitely, like, for sure been catching up on TV shows, binge watching Suits. I know I'm late to the game, but I blasted through season one and season two. I just started on season three last night. I feel like I've watched like all of that within 2 weeks or something like that. But yeah, that's something that I've been doing. Also, like some reading. I'm considering signing up for master class because, not to sound like a nerd, but I saw a trailer for one on economics that I thought was really interesting. But that's just, I don't know, stuff that I like to learn about. And also, I mean, do stuff for yourself, like a face mask or yoga. These are all things that you can do from home and are like relaxing, meditation. I usually have my diffuser going on during the day because I like some citrusy smells. I feel like that kind of keeps me a little bit more awake and alert and kind of like here instead of like lavender, which then you'll probably go to sleep. So don't do lavender if you're working from home, unless you're in the panic stage and you need some relaxation. Then maybe that's appropriate. But I've also, gone on a drive. So I drove through Waikiki the other day. Nobody freak out. I didn't get out of the car and like start walking around or anything like that. I stayed in the car, just wanted to see like what does it look like in one of the most crowded areas on Oahu, right? So drove down Waikiki. It was honestly kind of creepy. A lot of the high-end luxury stores were closed. That's what you see when you first get into Waikiki. That's the only reason why I bring it up. Their doors were closed. They had signs on the doors saying that, like we're closed because blah, blah, blah. Nobody was walking on the sidewalk. Usually there's like tons of people walking on the sidewalk. There are barely any cars on the street. Usually you're sitting behind somebody waiting to like slowly move through this traffic, but nobody was on the street. But then once you got to the beach, it was like crazy. And I think there was, I don't, at the time, this was about a week ago now. At the time, I think they could close certain facilities, but the beach did not fall into that category, which is why so many people are at the beach. But like there was caution tapes like strung up between like trees, like trying to tell people don't go on the beach, but people were still doing it. I think I saw a picture this morning of Waikiki, and it's totally nobody's there now. In that picture, anyway, it's like nobody's on the beach, period, which is how it should be right now. But that was just something different to look at, very interesting and kind of like creepy, just because I'm like, where is everybody? I mean, I know where they are, obviously, but that thought crosses your mind, right? Like this looks different from what it usually looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I saw a video on Facebook of Vegas when the
Hmm.
strip shut down and they went on lockdown, and it was so eerie to see maybe two people walking in downtown Fremont area and nobody on the strip, like four cars on the strip. It was unbelievable. And after you told me that you took a drive, I was thinking, you know what? Maybe we should do that. But my husband, he doesn't really like to drive. So I was thinking, nah, he's not gonna want to drive. But then he brought it up and I was laughing because I was like, I thought you wouldn't want to drive. He's like, no, I don't want to drive because of people around me. I don't want to drive in traffic. I'm a defensive driver. I don't want anybody like hitting me or anything like that. I don't trust other people in the way they drive. I just want to have no cars on the road. That's like the perfect situation. I was like, great, let's do it. So I think this weekend we're going to go for a drive and, do the same thing, not get out of the car or anything, but go to the places that we don't normally go to because, you know,
There's no traffic.
there's nobody out there. But
Yep.
then I also heard that the state is taking advantage of this time and fixing a lot of the roads, which is
That
huge.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
I would,
yeah, exactly. Somebody told me today that it did take them a little bit of extra time to get somewhere where it should only take like 10 minutes, but it was just because, there's construction and getting around that. But I'm all for it. Do all the construction you want during this time because there's a lot of roads that need some help. So I think it's great that they're focusing on that.
Yep, I know. And then when you have like two lanes closed, it's just like one car trying to get through anyway. So nobody cares. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's our perspective for today. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Outright Effect. You can find us at theoutrighteffect.com. Follow us on our social media accounts on Instagram and Facebook at The Outright Effect, or email us at theoutrighteffect@gmail.com. See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.